I got the biggest grin out of him the other night. I was over at first came back Colby goes, you still have a concession stand? I'm like, no. And then Aaron came over like just looking at my stuff. And he's like, not just that. And I said, I don't know, how much do you have? He goes, I don't have any money. He's doing to walk away. And then I said something about, don't you want to change any of your features? And he looked at me and just looked at me like that. And then his little grin. And I said, you know why I tease you? Because I love that little grin. And he grinned again and he walked.
And they told me, they were like, no, you asked for it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 13th regular Lebanon Board of Education meeting. I'd like to call it to order at 7:31. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for being here tonight. We're going to start off with some recognition. We have some recognition from FFA National Convention participants.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and I say this every meeting, but it's truly the best part of our meeting is to celebrate our learners, and we have several to get to today. The FFA National Convention participants are here, and they were not only participants, they were award winners, and I know that you all like to hear about their experience, so I will call them up, and if they would not mind coming up to that front table there. Aaron Grossman, Sarah Cropley, Rebecca Risley, and Sadie Boothroyd. So if you could, you just on the mic there, you have to push down the line, and then you could share with us a little bit about your experience.
Okay. So it was really an honor to compete at National Convention. We competed in the farm business and management career development event. It was really great. We were able to work as a team, and what we had to do basically was solve and figure out accurate budgets and deal with other money-related issues. You guys want to talk about that?
Basically, they gave us a lot of scenarios of, like, say, if, like, a farm here in Lebanon, and basically we had to make, like, an accounting record of it, go through those, and actually budget it out to see if we have enough sheep for the year for market prices and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Wow. You want to talk about officials too? Just a competition? Don't just go ahead, say it. Yeah, that's what the thing.
The competition was great. I don't know.
Well,
I'm not good at this.
We placed bronze, and other than competing there, it was really great just getting to travel with your friends and things like that. And it's really cool to meet new people there as well from all over the United States and even out of the United States, as there's FFA chapters in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, so that was really cool to meet those people.
I know for those that weren't competing, they had to go around and actually take pictures with with the other 50 states and even the other two chapters and whatnot, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And I remember I was helping my friend take pictures, and it was the coolest thing because you got to see it was the same backs where it had the FFA emblem, but then it had the different states on each one, and that was so cool.
It's awesome.
Any questions from any of the board members while we have them? Well, if there are no questions, I just wanted to say congratulations again, and thank you for being such a great representation of our town, of our high school. You know, we take great pride in being a community that still has farming and has an ASTI program, and for you to go out to the national level and present the way you did and then come back and celebrate with us, we're very appreciative. Congratulations.
Great job, guys.
What we'll do, since we have so many people to recognize today, I do have some certificates. I'd love to grab a picture to be able to put into my superintendent update and to celebrate on some other platforms. So if you don't mind hanging around a little bit, Mrs. Keelis Glover will take a picture of you after this set of ceremonies over. While we're talking about our ASTI program, these students are not here. They haven't been invited yet, but just foreshadowing a little bit, we did have a state champion milk quality team. They'll have the opportunity to travel to the National FFA Convention next October. So Taylor Riudo, Laurelyn Boyer, Rebecca Risley, and Brianna Doyle won a state championship for the milk quality team, so they'll be able to go, and we'll look forward to hearing about that next year as well. And then Isaac Cohn, Nate Cohn, Chris Sarnick, and Amelia Withington competed in the livestock CDE at UConn, and they placed second in the state, with Amelia placing first individually. Chris and Nate were 5th and 10th respectively. So we look forward to celebrating them as well. So a quick congratulations to them. Now we're going to move on to some students who excelled in sports during the fall and were recognized with all-state recognition. This first student that we're going to recognize, unfortunately, is home with the flu, but I know she's probably watching, because what else would you do when you're home but watch the Board of Ed meeting that's being live streamed. So it's Hazel DeLucia for our cross-country team. Coach Gray put together a nice write-up that I'd like to share with you. Hazel had an excellent first year in the high school cross-country team, placing very well at invitationals and conference meets. She placed first at the Wheeler Invite, second at the Winding Trails, third at the Harry Garrity and Wickham Invite, and sixth at the Stratton Brook Invite. This year's ECC All-Star for Lyman 2022 cross-country team is one of only 2 athletes in the entire conference that ran undefeated. At all 8 of her ECC conference races, she placed first for Lyman Memorial, attaining 40 out of 40 possible points to become an ECC first-team All-Star. She placed 5th at the ECC Championship meet out of 88 and finished 9th at the Class S state meet out of 121, which is quite an accomplishment. Her finish at the state meet allowed her to become the first-time member of the Class S All-State cross-country team. Congratulations to Hazel. Now, I have been involved in sports my entire life. I will admit volleyball was one I didn't know much about. And I had heard a lot about Lyman's Powerhouse program, and I have been able to watch some of their games firsthand. I went to the state championship game last year. I went to a game at Mohegan Sun this year, and they never disappoint. So today we have 2 student athletes who are recognized as All-State. We have Ariana Garcia, and we have Cassidy Latour. So I'd like to share some of their stats with you, and then a write-up from Coach Vigu. So Ariana this year had 38 aces, 11 kills, 44 assists, 471 digs, while Cassidy had 62 aces, 208 kills, 222 assists, 280 digs, and 12 blocks. Coach Vigu says that All-State for Cassidy and Ariana is so well-deserved. They both perform at such a high level against our opponents. They know the game very well and give 110% on every point. They're leaders by example out there on the court, and they have proved to me that they are All-State worthy since I had the opportunity to coach them last year. She's so proud of their accomplishments as first-team All-Star players and now All-State award winners. Congratulations to Ariana and Cassidy. And last but not least, I'm sure many of you were part of the magical ride that our girls soccer team had. Congratulations to Coach Murillo on getting to the first state championship game in our program's history. And one major contributor from that team was Magda Carpenter. So Magda was a 3-time ECC All-Star and 2-time Class S All-State player. In addition, this year as a senior, she was voted the ECC Tournament MVP and captained the team to its first ECC Tournament title, and as I just mentioned, the first ever appearance in the state finals. Her accomplishments were recognized by the New London Day as they recognized her as the Player of the Year for the 2022 season. She is continuing to work on her game and actually has a game in the indoor season right now. I was speaking to her parents, and I know she's committed to play at the next level, soccer as well, so we're very proud of all of your accomplishments, and we thank you for being here tonight. I'll bring Mrs. Quiles Glover their certificates, and if you don't mind taking some pictures in front of the trophy case outside, we'd really appreciate it.
Nice job. Clearly.
So funny.
All right, we don't have any communication this evening unless some had come in since the packet came out, which I don't believe.
I do have two things that I'd like to share with the board and the community. Around the holiday season, our school community does a lot to support the town. We got 2 letters from the Lebanon, Town of Lebanon and Social Service Office thanking us for generous donations. The second grade team of teachers and students had put together a food drive and delivered food to the pantry around Thanksgiving. And also our class advisors here at the high school worked with the students and ended up donating 12 Lyman Orchard pies to the food pantry, and they were very appreciative and sent us notes about that. I'm going to highlight this in my superintendent update in the month of December as well.
Oh, that's fabulous news. Great job. All right, it is now time for public participation. In accordance with the Lebanon Board of Education bylaws, we allocate up to 30 minutes with each individual speaker, given 2 minutes to participate. At this time, are there any members of the public who wish to speak this evening? Come on up, Leah.
Leah, just make sure that the line is pushed down on the microphone.
It is, you're good.
Have a seat.
You can sit if you want, or stand, whatever you want.
Okay, unfortunately, I was late because I was trying to print it, but my printer wasn't working, so I do have to read it on here. But today I'd like to discuss a missing element for seniors at Lyman, senior privilege. I strongly believe that seniors who have earned more than the mandatory credit requirement to graduate be granted the privilege of having more than one study hall. Because we are allowed no more than one, seniors are forced to take unnecessary classes that they seem to have no interest in, reflected in their grade in that class. Most seniors, like myself, have already applied and been accepted into a plethora of colleges and universities. With a career path set in stone, with our minimal elective options due to short staffing, I'm set to take the class Careers in Sports next semester. I'm already going to college for a career in speech pathology, deeming this course inessential. This course, along with either gym or U.S. foreign policy, are the only options for me and roughly a quarter of my class to take next semester. Some students who may be going directly into the workforce after high school may have opportunities to work during the day, gaining both experience and a possible job opportunity out of high school. Having to stay in school for an extra class prevents this from happening. Again, I feel that the seniors who have worked hard these past 3 years in high school to either reach the credit requirement or to exceed it deserve to be rewarded instead of put under more stress.
Thank you, Leah. And can you just say your name and for the purposes of the notes?
I'm Leah Komorowski.
Student.
Yeah, COMEROSKI.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll move along to our consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Our student representatives report. Hi, Lexi.
Hello. So I have very exciting news from all 3. So I've got a pretty nice report. Okay, some very exciting things have been going on at LES. They are currently holding a pajama drive. When I went to meet with 4th graders, they told me all about how excited they were for the band and chorus concert that was held tonight. This is the first concert where 3rd graders will join the 4th graders in the chorus. The second graders will also be going to the CT Science Center on December 16th. Their first trimester will close soon. Times at the middle school have also been very eventful recently. They held Spirit Week in late November, and the staff and students had a blast participating in it. Winter sports like basketball and wrestling have started. LMS will be having a holiday Spirit Week, Monday, December 19th to Friday, December 23rd. There will be a band and chorus concert held on Friday, December 16th at 7 p.m. The PTO will be having a bake sale and raffle basket at this time. The peer educators established a mentorship program where members of LGHS and peer educators mentor students during study hall a few times a week. The 7th and 8th graders had their first school dance 80s themed last Friday, December 2nd. Now for Lyman. Today, students from the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts put on an informational performance called Looking in Theater. During this, they acted out scenes that showcase current social issues. Students were encouraged to participate, and they did a great job engaging with the actors and asking questions. On another note, winter sports, wrestling, girls and boys basketball have begun. This school's musical, Mamma Mia, has been casted and rehearsals for it have started in preparation for the shows in March. We also held an open house on December 1st for the LMS 8th graders. Teachers from all subjects as well as a variety of clubs were showcased. Last Sunday, December 4th, students from the high school along with students from the middle school sang at the tree lighting, as well as the Lyman and LMS band playing in the Historical Society during the event. And our winter concert will be held this Thursday, December 15th, featuring chorus, band, and contemporary ensemble. And that concludes it, besides, the break coming up, which I'm sure we're all very excited for.
Thanks, Lexi. Any questions?
I would like to point out, she left out that she facilitated today during the assembly by passing the mic around to her
Yeah.
fellow students,
Great.
encouraging participation.
Good job, Lexi.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Have a great holiday. Yes, thank you. All right, reports of committees. We had some shuffling going on with our committees, but we'll start with Dawn.
No report.
Safety and security. Okay, Danelle.
I'm back.
Curriculum.
The curriculum committee. So we met on December, I have the wrong date written on here. We met last week. And we had 4 topics. First topic was the DESA results, and Dawn, our Director of People Services, shared the DESA results with 88% of our population at strong or typical results, and those who had needs will be addressed. The early college experience and AP course was a topic. Our assistant principal, Ms. McCarthy, shared this flyer with us that's been put out to highlight trends and that a lot of parents are looking for opportunities for their kids. And so this one highlights our early college experience, advanced placement courses, our athletics, our extracurricular activities, X blocks, and so they'll be tweaking it a little bit. I believe this is put out by Mrs. Noasad, right? She designed this. So we took a look at that. Third topic was agriculture and the curriculum. I asked us to do a little bit of review because that was in the town's annual report. And Andy and Rita gave us several examples of where and how we already have agriculture in our curriculum, but also reminded us that we need to stick with it, NGSS, the science standards, so we can't deviate too much from it to do agriculture. But going forward, we talked about the garden club coming back. Andy's applied for the Connecticut Grown Grant, and we're looking for more community involvement, perhaps volunteers coming in to help with some of these activities. And also we thought, since Mr. L's leaving and a new principal is coming in, a new administrator, it might be a good time to just have them kind of start with some of their ideas rather than trying to tweak things now. And so going forward with the coming school year, we're hoping to figure out, logistics, maybe schedule changes, things like that. And then finally, we had grant and PD updates. Title IV was approved. Title III is still pending. And there was a lot of PD. I believe it's in the minutes, so I won't try to summarize all of them. But I know there was a lot of excitement between administrators going to conferences and grade level specific content, and what else? Lots of science of reading, PE, things like that. So just read the minutes and you'll find more details. And that's it.
Any questions for Danelle? I was just thinking about maybe now is a good time to think about what the budget would need to look like for next year with agriculture and the greenhouse and that type of thing. This might
Some
be-
of that hopefully will be, if we get the grant, Connecticut Growing, that will help with some of it
Right.
at least.
Thanks, Danelle. John, superintendent eval.
Okay, the Superintendent Evaluation Committee did not meet. However, we're about to kick into our mid-year eval. Next day or two, I'm going to send out an email to all the board members, kind of reviewing how it goes, or in the case of the people new, discussing how it goes. It's informal, and there'll be more information in your email box, hopefully tomorrow.
Great. Questions on that? Great. Thanks, John. Alexis, negotiations?
We did meet tonight. Negotiations were ongoing regarding our unaffiliated salary contracts. It is an action item today, so we will be going to executive session after to discuss what we had going on today.
Great. Any questions? All right. Thank you. Maureen, policy.
Policy did meet tonight, and we adjusted some issues, but we also have second meetings, so we'll have some action items later in the meeting.
Questions on policy? I'm sure we'll discuss it later on when we take action. Nicole, finance and enrollment. No, facilities and enrollment.
Right, no, both of them have not met since November 1st, so there is no report. So I will now chair the facilities, and Brian will be finance going forward.
Great. And the committees are both the same for finance and facilities. So
Yeah,
the people.
meeting next week.
Great.
Yes.
All right. Brian, finance.
Nothing from us either. The finance and facilities are meeting next week, next Tuesday. So
That's right. We have our public forum on Thursday.
this Thursday
This
is with the superintendent, yes. And then next week, we're getting preliminary, on the finance side of it, preliminary looks at
Technology, athletics, and facilities.
Yep.
Great. Any questions on that? Okay. I'm wondering which committee could kind of like take on the public comment. If we could just kind of assign that to a committee to be discussed at a different day.
What does that
Maybe it would,
entail?
I was thinking about course requirements, maybe curriculum, Danelle, or maybe even policy. So it could be kind of like a dual effort, but we can gather some information on that.
What are we specifically looking for?
The policy that, is it a policy that requires the number of classes taken per year?
Oh, like what Leah just talked about?
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that policy,
So
or
that would be a curriculum thing, right?
I'm wondering if you're looking for answers to her questions or
policy
response to it, or
just, I think just looking at the policy, again, discussing it.
Could it land in both places?
It could.
I think there were elements of her public comment that could kind of land in both.
Right, just to kind of keep it on your radar.
And just so, if I may, just so the board's aware, we had met with students who went to the Cape Caps conference around student voice and how they could bring situations. So I'm proud to see that Leah did that today. And Mr. Apicelli, Mrs. Singleton, and myself already have scheduled something to follow up with her. So we'll learn more about where that comment came from and what her thoughts are, and then we'll be able to bring that ourselves to these subcommittees, or maybe even invite Leah.
That'd be great, thank you. All right, moving on to the administrators' reports. Are there any administrators who'd like to add to their report?
Guess not.
I turned away for a second. So, is it our turn? What's that? Is it our turn? Really?
Yes.
You don't have
You don't have to.
Nicole called on you.
Thank you. All right, so the one thing I did want to say is the open house. You heard Alexis talk about that. We had a lot of people from out of district here, which was really incredible, including several people from Lisbon, who next year will be their first year that they're able to come here. And actually, one of the families from Lisbon didn't have an 8th grader, they had a 7th grader, and they were interested in coming here. I put in the board packet that we had a parent reach out to us who missed it from one of our sending towns, and was talking with one of her friends, and the friend was speaking so highly of what the evening was like and their experience here that she emailed me, and they're actually coming for our tour after school tomorrow, and they're talking about having their son come and shadow. So it was really a great showcase for Lyman. We've done some things different. We've changed over the 10 years that I've been here. We put some clubs and sports out in the atrium, so people, when they walked in, that's what they saw. We had, tour guides like Alexis and others, and the students who did it were fantastic, because that's what the feedback was from the parents on the way out. The kids were really enthusiastic about the school, and they were great salespeople. Because they really spoke from the heart about their experience. So it was a really great evening, and it was a great showcase for us.
It's great news. Thanks, Jay.
Awesome.
Any other administrators' reports? Okay, move along to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Just a quick note, we do have a few administrators who are not in attendance, and it relates to some of the health updates. I encourage them to take some time to rest. We need their presence, and they're working very hard, so that's why they are not here tonight. I'll jump into the COVID update, and then I'll segue into some other health situations that we're dealing with. So as of December 9th, we had a total of 79 student cases from the start of the year till the 9th, and 31 student cases. When we went into the weekend, we did have a small handful of students at the middle school and just a few at the elementary who were at that time in their 5-day period of isolation. Our numbers have been pretty consistent throughout the year. We haven't had too many big spikes, although at the state level they are hinting that they feel a kind of winter surge is around the corner. So our nurses continue to work hard to be very proactive in the early identification of these symptoms. Along those lines, in the most recent meeting I had with the State Department of Ed and the Department of Public Health, they urged districts to send home any remaining self-test kits that they have, and we have a lot. So I sent a thrill share out to the community to let them know that this Friday we would be sending home 2 test kits with each of our learners, and offering an opportunity, if they would not like that to be done, to notify the building. So we've had some response of families that have declined that offer, but we will be putting those in the hands of our learners, not only to be proactive as we have these concerts and other extracurricular events, sports that are really kicking into high gear, but also maybe to prevent things that may come back after the new year. The reason the state is making this recommendation is because the kits that they deployed to districts will be expiring in January. Interesting little piece that they threw into the presentation is they're working on a purchasing portal. So I think they are coming to realize that COVID will not be going away, and it's not likely they're going to be able to continue to give free test kit inventory out to districts. So I will keep my ears to the ground there and know what this might mean for potential impact if we are required to buy test kits as a district, or if this will be something that will be left in the hands of families. The other things that we are dealing with, we are seeing a pretty high incidence of flu or other respiratory things within our buildings. Again, we're doing the very best we can to share information from the Department of Public Health or from, our local providers of what we can be doing to take care of ourselves and to make sure that, when they have symptoms, we're not coming to school, et cetera, until they're fever-free and feeling better. But it is, that time of year that we're pretty used to dealing with this, and teachers, nurses, admin alike have all been great in trying to manage this challenging health time. Any questions about health update?
I'm curious how we're doing with substitutes for all the staff that are out.
I would like to say that it's been seamless and perfect, but it's not. There are days that we are not fully covered. I do think that we have a small number of additional subs as compared to maybe the start of the school year, but we're not seeing that applications are flying in. We have a core group of very dedicated subs in the district, and I'm thankful for all they do, bouncing from room to room on a daily basis, but sometimes even room to room within the day. We're doing the very best we can to thank them for their efforts constantly and make sure that they're feeling appreciated and continuing to come back, because without them we'd be in a much different situation. But like I said before, it doesn't make it any easier, but we are not alone. Many districts are struggling with staffing, and it's a daily chore and task of the principals to figure out that puzzle.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I'm not really sure what my question is, but I'm wondering if it needs to be on our radar. Both of my boys were home with the flu. I did take them to the doctor in order to get the coveted note, excused absence. But I've been speaking with people in town, and they're either not taking them. They're like, well, they have it. They're sick, so we're going to get through it. Or they can't get into their doctor, and so they can't get the absence note. So what happens if, it's true that, like, my doctor told me that my boys are probably going to have this multiple times over the winter season. So for the people who are not able to get that absence note, like, what happens?
Yeah, so that would lean into our attendance policy, and up to the first 9 absences, they can just get notes from their family. But it is a best practice to, first of all, get your child to see a medical professional. And I know that's challenging in these times, but that's something we would encourage so that we can know exactly what we're dealing with and try to triage as best we can. And then to get the follow-up note. But, that would be something I'd want to look at it on a case-by-case basis and lean into that policy and give them the specific guidance there.
Thanks.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
All right, moving on to the ASTI barn. So we're working on obtaining a certificate of occupancy so that animals and students can occupy the building. In order to do that, we needed to have emergency lights, emergency exits, and 2 fire extinguishers. So we're working on that, and the electrical work has been quoted, and that is being scheduled. So we dug the trench and we ran the lines to be able to do that. Now it's actually getting that done. We decided to purchase the lighting fixtures directly from the supplier, and we'll be able to take advantage of an energy efficient lighting rebate. Something else that's of importance is keeping water away from the structure. So we have a contractor being scheduled to install some commercial grade gutters. And then there are materials that still need to be purchased for the animals to occupy the barn, like gates and fencing. Speaking of the animals, in addition to our current sheep inventory, which are occupying the small animals barn, we have the mini donkey, Milo. We also have a new female boar goat named Dale, who's expecting, and we hope that we'll have a new kid in the building. In July, we had purchased a beef cow, Stewie. So him and Milo live out in the lean-to right now, patiently awaiting a spot in the new barn. Thank you to Val, to John Jarvis, and to Brenda Wilds for getting us that information. So we are moving along, and again, it's just nice every day that I'm here to be able to look out and see that structure there and think about the impact that that's going to have on our ASTI program. Yeah.
What is the timeline to get that CO, do you think by Christmas?
Val, do you have any update on that?
Not by Christmas, but certainly in the next month or two, I think. Yeah, it's just coordinating the contractors.
Okay.
And as we get updates on that, I can make sure to update the board on the date. Any other questions there? All right, moving on to the 23-24 budget. You can see that found its way up the agenda from out of the finance report section and into the report of the superintendent. So just a reminder to anyone out there listening and to all of you, we will be holding our first budget input session this Thursday in the Lebanon Middle School Library. We're having a start time of 2:30, which is really aimed at the middle school and high school staff. And then we'll do another session at 3:30 for the elementary staff. And I'll hang around at 4:30 to see if there's anyone who missed those first two sessions who wanted to come on in and listen. I'm going to keep this presentation very surface level. Let them know, what the context of the budget development are, what my priorities going into this process are. Share with them some initial projections for keeping everything that we currently have and moving it forward. I'll talk a little bit about some cost savings ideas, but really at this point, I'm there to try to get feedback from all of these stakeholders as to things that they'd like to see considered in the budget proposal to you all in January, or things that they think actually we should possibly be cutting in ways to save money in this challenging fiscal time. Any questions about that? So as Brian and Nicole hinted at also, there will be a subcommittee meeting next Tuesday, which I will take feedback from these input sessions, kind of roll it into a little bit more detailed presentation where we'll look at, more specifically budget drivers that have caused the increases and get into all the different contracted services and what those increases have been.
Great. Sounds good.
And the last thing in the report of the superintendent is the bus transportation contract. So Val and I have actually had numerous meetings with M&J this year, which has been a nice improvement over last year. Last year they were responsive, but this year I feel like they've been even more so. They've not only been responsive to emails and phone calls, I think they've been proactive in reaching out to us when there have been issues, and they've actually had, I'd say, 2 or 3 meetings where they've come to the office and sat down and talked with Val and I about questions, concerns that we have about the current contract, and started talking a little bit about what the future might be with us. I did get a letter actually just this afternoon from John Hipsher, who's the Chief Operating Officer at M&J, because I had let him know that I would be bringing this to your attention today. And he just talked about the fact that they have been the transportation provider for the past 10 years. The relationship's extremely important to them, and they're very proud of it. And he talks about how wonderful we've been to work with. So at this point, I'm asking the board for approval to move forward with considering an extension with M&J. I think there are many factors that make this a smart decision. If we were to go out to bid and open this up, I think we would be presented with figures that would be much higher than if we were to go with an extension with M&J. That on top of the fact that we do have a long-standing relationship with them. Many districts are really struggling with transportation, and while we have our challenges, I think we are in large part in a pretty good place, and with the cooperation and responsiveness, I think that this is a good partnership to explore.
Question? Go ahead. Not that this is a deciding factor at all for the contract, but do you know currently how many bus drivers we are missing right now?
So I don't know how many bus drivers we're missing, but we do have a running spreadsheet in which we account for the number of buses that don't run.
Right.
And we have been reimbursed accurately and in a timely manner this year.
Okay.
So it's not like something we've waited and tried to recoup at the very end of the year. They've been doing monthly reports for us, which is another one of those improvements. The bus drivers are not our employees. That
Right,
is
they're
on
theirs.
them, and according to the contract, that's their responsibility. So they have had shortages similarly to how we have, teacher or other staff shortages, and they have to juggle it and figure it out. And there have been times where runs have been combined. And, as we move forward, I have some ideas as how we might be able to save some money as it relates to transportation. But first and foremost, I think we need to decide who the contractor is going to be, and that's what I'm asking for this evening.
But how many buses are not running right now? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, so we have 13 Type 1, the
Yep,
bigger
the big ones,
buses,
yep.
and 3 of the smaller ones that need to run.
Yep.
So there's not a consistent, we're down 1, we're down 2. There are days in which one might not run, but they're meeting the expectations of the contract more regularly than not.
Okay.
I know at the elementary school, there's 2 routes that are impacted consistently.
And I think that has a lot to do with the proximity to each other in terms of who they put on the other bus and the number of kids that are on that. So they wouldn't take a bus that is close to capacity and put it with another bus that's close to capacity. If they know that there's a particular bus that can't run, they're going to look for one that might have less kids on it or that's closer to where that other run is. So to still try to get kids home in a timely manner, which is tough, and to still give them room on that bus.
I think it is tough, and I've seen them modify. I mean, it's not easy. I don't have to wait for my kids at the end of the road right now, but I have had to do that, and I know what a pain it can be, like as a parent, like waiting for your kiddo to get off the bus or waiting to get to work after your kiddo gets on the bus. But I do feel like they have really tried to make it as convenient as possible or as consistent as possible for families and students. So I do appreciate that, even with the arrival and pick up and drop off of some of our kids that are maybe not going to Lyman, to some tech schools. They are really trying to manage that, and it's noticeable. So I know it's not ideal for anybody, but I do think that the effort is definitely there. Go ahead, Dawn.
To add to that, I am one who has to go to the end of my road. And it's not that it's not ideal, it's that when your child is a half hour later and you don't know where they are, have had no communication about approximately what time they'll get home, that's the concern.
Yeah.
It's not I'm being put out, it's I honestly don't know where my child is. So.
If I could.
Go ahead.
That's interesting, and that's something that we can have conversations about if in fact we do go to a contract extension with M&J. I know that there are other districts that are using like bus tracking information that would provide that type of information to families through the use of an app. So that's something we can explore to see if M&J has the ability to do that. I also know, I've looked into the policy that we have around transportation, and there is language about timing and communication of that. It's unfortunately not very specific and not probably in the, as a parent, if my kid's going to be 5 minutes late, I want to know. And that for a bus company is really hard to be able to pinpoint when making these changes the exact time. But I will own as a district that I think we can do better to push back on the supervisor to tell us a little bit more so that we can communicate better. So I think there are things that we can do to improve. Some of that I think is on M&J, and some of that I think is on us.
Any other questions on that? Go ahead.
I did also get some information from legal counsel regarding going out for how many years you could do. I know there was some conversation about could you do a limited time, like a 1-year type of thing. And in his opinion, that is not likely, that these contractors are going to be looking for multi-year deals to have security within their own business, and that it's a high likelihood that if you try to pursue a 1-year, you're going to get a very high percentage increase. But legislatively, you can have you can go, typically it's 5 years, but you could go as much as to 10. If you went to 10, it would have to guarantee that you would have electric buses running by that 10th year. That's new legislation. So if they can't guarantee that you have electric vehicles running, then you can only go up to 5 years. So most contractors are going the 5-year route. If you had electric buses, by the 10th year, you could go up to 10 years.
Well, they're going to be busy in the next 10 years. Wow.
That's it for bus transportation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay, and we can vote to extend for up to 5 years without going up to full bid.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to a facilities report, facilities tracking.
Yeah, so there is not much change. I don't know if Val, if you want to come up at this point and we can both talk a little bit about the facilities tracking list and roll right into finance.
Yeah, the straight line's on, right? I told you last time I knew it, and I don't. Yeah, not much has changed. I know last board meeting we talked about the money going out for paving, so not much else has changed. I updated, we accidentally noted that I think the electrical was not in progress and it technically should have been in progress, so I updated that. But not many major changes to capital. There's $88,000 remaining for the rest of the fiscal year. And non-lapsing again has not much activity, and with 330,000 remaining for the fiscal year.
And I can just add a little bit more details. I'm sure there are a couple questions out there. So the seeding project, they're paving around that. The company that we have paid a deposit to, the plants that they used for asphalt have closed. So what we did do, I don't know if any of you have seen it, we staked off that area, and it has held up pretty good with the tarp and the stakes to prevent further runoff, and that will be a spring project. So that's why that one's going to stay showing as in progress. The district painting, they will be doing during the winter break, so that's why that one is still in progress. We have not been able to get back out to get a test run with the scissor lift, so that's why that one is not started. So those are the 3 quick updates I had on that.
Wait, so what, with the scissor lift, all of the, like the 2 that I heard of that Kevin was gonna go look at, those didn't pan out?
No, we were not able to get back out there. You know, it's, you know, right now that's either John or Kevin that have to do that, and there's been so much going on in district, they have not been able to get back out.
But as far as we know, they're still available?
I don't know the answer to that.
I have a question for Val.
Sure.
88,000 remaining in capital. So that includes athletics, technology, and?
No, that's just SIP. That's just school improvement plan.
Okay.
So there's other reports right after the facility tracking that show the balances for technology and athletics. They're not as pretty as the other ones.
We had 125.6 in the school improvement plan, and now we have 88.
So is there any money left in athletics?
There's $30,000 in athletics, nothing's been spent this year.
But is that money slated to be spent on something?
Sure. Exactly. Yeah.
I actually just had correspondence with Scott Elliott, our athletic director, regarding the remaining balances, and he and I are going to be having a meeting to discuss plans for how those funds could be used. He had put together a proposal to address the locker room situation, but we have to circle back with administration, he and I, to discuss if that is still the plan of action, and if not, we need to move to something else on that list that was a little bit lower priority but might be more feasible.
And the 88,000, is that money slated right now? Any of it?
In SIP?
Yes.
In schools?
Yes.
So, I mean, theoretically, it's slated for those projects. You know, if you look at the estimated cost column, you see that our project projects consist of like $316,000.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm sure there's somewhere it's slated.
Well, and I think too, if you look at the remaining balance to some of these estimated costs, so like, let's imagine that district painting is completed. We still have $23,400 out there that needs to be paid towards that.
Right.
So those balances will start to whittle away at our overall remaining balance.
So there's a reason why I'm asking these questions. It's because back on the August 19th walkthrough, the LMS scoreboard was on it. And I would like some of these funds to replace that scoreboard. Because we've been talking about it for like 5 years now. Like, the light bulbs are on, the light bulbs are off. I think at this point, that scoreboard needs to go. And I would just like to see something new and pretty in there, because, you know, there's games in there that are really important, and I don't know the shot clock. I don't know what time is left when I'm watching my kids play. So I really think we should replace it at this point. We've been talking about it way too long.
Yeah, so I was at that scrimmage the other day, and I noted that too. A flip chart for the score will not be acceptable for our student athletes. I did talk to Roger Moyer, the athletic director at the middle school, and we do have digital options for the scores table. We did also have John check the electrical outlets for the board, and it doesn't seem to be the actual outlets, it's the board itself. So then I circled back to talk to Mr. Elliott, and I would agree with him that if we were to go in that direction, the likelihood that we are going to be able to get a board, get it installed during this winter season is probably slim to none.
It's okay, I just want it in the works, because we've been talking about it too long.
Agreed.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Danelle.
Going along with Nicole's point, when you mentioned the locker rooms at the high school, I assume, I was also thinking, we walked through the middle school locker rooms, and they're horrendously outdated and not updated at all, and I was going to mention the scoreboard also. And then I was also at LES on Friday for their PTO fair, and while I was standing in the gym floor still has black rot spots or whatever they are. The floor is still flaking
Burn
in
marks
places.
are still there.
And I was also told there's now a leak in there, in the gym floor. And as I watched vendors coming in and out on the sidewalk, the crack that's there is enormous. There's a hole that's 4 inches deep in the sidewalk at the bottom of the stairs, and I don't know how that's handicapped accessible anymore. It's been refilled and repaired and refilled and repaired, but it's really in disrepair right now.
You mean outside of the gym? Outside of
the
LES
school.
gym?
The front door.
Yeah,
right?
the front walkway where the stairs come down, there's a gaping crack as well as a hole.
Yeah, I had to watch somebody navigate over that in a wheelchair tonight.
Yeah, go ahead.
So those are things that did come up at our district level, safety and security. These are things that have been kind of ongoing. So Daleen Flooring is actually coming out next week to look at the elementary school. We'll see what their thought about possible repair. We had talked at that committee about the sidewalks being a concern. The reason why they keep being patched repaired is because it's much cheaper than laying down complete new sidewalks. So, you know, that's one of those decisions as a board, you know, we'll have to grapple with. But that is something that's on the radar to be addressed as well.
But if it, I mean, something like that, and I get absolutely patching is, you know, we don't have a lot of choice in this, particularly when it comes to current weather or winter time, but if it is 4 inches deep and somebody does try to, you know, have to navigate it or whatever, then that is something that needs to be moved up on the priority list. And as those cracks or as those things happen, then we need to, in my mind, immediately repair them. It's just, you know, that should be something that rises to the top of somebody's list, in my humble opinion.
Andy, Daleen Flooring is not the people that did the gym floor over? Okay, so.
They did this.
Daleen did here.
Only.
Here, yep, and at the high school, and then we were not having good luck in getting contractors to come assess the situation at the elementary, so now we have Daleen going down there.
Who was the original person that did LES?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I can get that for
The
you.
first thing I thought of, when we did the walkthrough it was right after it had been done. So whoever put the, what do you call it, shellac, glaze, whatever, on it, we saw it in August, and it would seem that whoever did it should fix it. But I believe there is a bigger problem underneath anyway, so someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because putting that over the top may have been what we were asking them to do. We didn't ask them to assess the underlying problem. But we can ask those questions.
I have a question that's not related to those, and I don't know if you guys could answer it. Maybe I have to hold on to it for Kevin, but do we have a contractor signed and solidified for the summer for the asbestos removal that we have the funding for? Do you know that, or should I wait to ask Kevin?
Yeah, so I know that he has been trying to retrieve information and to see people's availability. I don't think we have a contractor solidified at this point.
Should we set up a timeline, like January is,
Oh, yeah.
a time when we can be sure that that's nailed
Is
down?
that something that, I still call it engineering, but do they go out to bid for us for that?
I'm not sure.
I think that's what the engineers that's what the whole proposal includes. It's Barton and Police now, I think, so if I'm remembering correctly, we don't have to handle the bid specs and everything in the proposal, and I think that's been the communication issues with them.
The last of my notes on October 4th is Kevin is going to speak to the engineer.
October?
Who would be the engineer?
That's Barton, and that's the company that is, they're engineers, and they, we're not all professionals in going out for different asbestos, and, so the engineers put all the specs together and the bid together for us, so they can help us select a qualified company.
So that has not been done yet?
I do not believe so.
I know that we have a pretty busy finance facilities next week, but maybe early in January, we should bring some of these topics. And Danelle, just circling back to the middle school locker room. So when we did our walkthrough, I've had some ongoing conversations with John Jarvis about removing the kind of inoperable lockers that are in there and trying to create more of a open space for a coach to be able to talk with their team, and maybe doing some internal painting. We might not need to outsource that to, professional painters. We might be able to do some of that stuff in-house, looking to get benches that are more appropriate. So we've looked into those things, but in terms of priority, that was not high on there, and it was more something we spotted during a walkthrough. So finding funding to do that is also challenging.
I just want to make sure it wasn't included with Scott's interest in the locker room. It was different. That's
It was
Lyman,
different.
And this is the middle school.
Yes, it was different.
Thanks.
Okay.
Just as a side note, Brian and I were talking about, finance facilities combination, and we would like to have another walkthrough in February to kind of like do a mid-year report card to see the school. So if there's anything else on the list before budget time, we can talk about it.
Would you like me to reach out to the Board of Finance to have a representative there?
Absolutely.
Because I remember that being part of the plan, and if we're going to do that anyway, it could be good timing.
I think end of January is better just because of the budget. It can get kind of, I don't know if February or January is better for this. So just let us know.
Great, good idea. All right, anything else for facilities? All right, finance.
So here's November, expenditures, I put a little detail at the bottom as they usually do, a little update. We look to be fairly healthy as far as historical percentages. Andy made a comment and he was like, really about 3/10 off, and I was like, well, we have to be precise here with the numbers we're reporting, so. Again, we still have, overages in tuition and transportation associated with the special education students. We did successfully complete our first filing for ECS, so we were able to report those new students who come in. And the state will work their magic and give us some dollar amount associated with calculation that I don't quite understand. But hopefully it'll be 73% of any student that costs us over $99,000 collectively for tuition and transportation. So that's the bulk of how ECS works. We have our December filing, and we should see our first payment around January. If you notice, there hasn't been anything in activity for, it's the 561 for excess cost reimbursement. Because that payment hasn't come in. But we had budgeted 225, knowing we have more high-cost students that, that could go up, which would be a good thing for us. But keep in mind that we have to spend the $99,000 on a student in order to get any reimbursement, and it's still only 73% of the overage.
Right.
So if we spend $100,000 on a student, we get 73% of the $1,000 back. Right?
Any questions on finance?
Just my usual, Val, anything now that you're currently...
Nothing major. Heating oil is going to be a big target in the next few months. Alexis had a great question that she emailed wondering why there's nothing remaining. So I don't mind going over with the board to explain that as well. So in electricity and heating energy, it says we have nothing remaining only because the purchase orders are encumbering the whole budget. Because I just want to kind of suck up the funds to make sure we set aside that money to pay those bills. We only spent $10,000 in November for heating oil, $40,000 for the year, but it's getting cold, so we'll see. The deliveries are coming in, it's wild to see, like $15,000, $19,000 bills. Because Kevin's like, I've never seen anything like this. So, he continues to stay up on making sure the levels are where they're supposed to be, so we're making sure we're not starving the building by any means. But that, utilities will be difficult this year, for sure.
All right, thank you, Val.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, moving on to our action items. Our first action item is to act on the Lyman out-of-state field trip to Costa Rica. Does anybody want to speak to this?
No. That was put forward by Captain Hunt, one of our science teachers, and it's going to have more of a science type feel to it. 2 years ago, in June of 2020, we were supposed to go to Costa Rica. Sandra Rios, the Spanish, one of our Spanish teachers, was going to take students, and then that got pushed to 2021, and then it didn't happen in 2021. So they wanted to try and go down again. So I think they're going to look to take one of the Spanish teachers as well.
Oh, great.
Jay, it says only 15 students. How are they picking? Whoever wants to go?
Yeah, whoever, the one that want to go, yeah.
What if
I think it was a very small number that wanted to go before, and I think what they're doing is partnering with another school, like another group that's going down there, to try and, because it would be more expensive to go just with 15 people. If you had a bigger group, it makes it a little cheaper.
What if more students want to go? Is it open or?
I wouldn't be able to tell you, I'm sorry.
I thought up above it says at least 10. If over 20, you must notify the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Cafeteria?
That's what it says, yeah.
First page.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
The second page, it says 15.
That's one when they leave from school, when they're taking all those kids out of school. Carlos has to account for those missing lunches.
This is when school closes, though.
Well,
not
careful. It might not be.
Oh, jeez. Any questions on the field trip? Go ahead, Danelle.
So this is for the class we just approved, the environmental science class?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
But do we know if this is going to be impacted by the budget. It's the same staff member, but it's a new course that staff member would be teaching.
It
So I'm
also
just,
says slash biology.
Right.
Pretty sure we have
Remember,
to.
we have an environmental science course right now. There's an AP one that was just approved.
oh, got it. That's
So
a
we
difference.
still have like an environmental science course right now.
Any other questions? I'll hear a motion.
Oh, motion to approve the field trip to Costa Rica on June 23rd, 2023.
For?
For environmental science slash
It says
biology.
24. 24, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Motion to approve the Costa Rica field trip for the environmental science slash biology students in June of 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Nicole, seconded by John. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is Bruce, Brian, Nicole, Maureen, Sarah, Alexis, John, and Dawn. All those opposed? And all those abstaining? Janelle's abstaining. That motion passes. Thank you. Okay. We have our 2023 meeting dates as an action item.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2023 meeting dates.
I'll second.
Motion by John, seconded by Alexis. Any discussion?
Just so we're clear, this was where we had changed it, we had to go back, and I think there were notes from Chelsea that came back as to why.
Yeah.
So, next time we just have to trust, we have to trust Chelsea, I guess.
That's right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the 2023 board meeting dates, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, action item number 3 is on the bus transportation contract.
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent to engage in negotiating a contract extension with M&J Bus Company
Great job for 5 years.
for 5 years.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by John, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? Right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Okay, action items. We have some policies. Maureen.
I would like to separate out number 4, and I would like to recommend at this time that we pass 5 through 13.
Okay, motion to approve action items 5 through 13. Motion by Maureen, seconded by Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Action item number 4.
And the reason I asked to pull that one out is the other ones had been passed in our subcommittee unanimously, but the number 4 nepotism, we had some dissension and was not unanimous, so that one, I will still recommend that we pass it as we see it.
Second.
Motion by Maureen, seconded by Danelle. Any discussion? Go ahead, Danelle.
Well, I would like to discuss why I'm in favor of it. Is that?
Yeah, of course.
I think with the shortage of substitute teachers going on right now, I think this will help, perhaps. We took the language out that includes Board of Education in it. Everything else is kept the same. So the line that we took out was just to remove ourselves from prohibiting us from having family members be employees of the district. Everything else in there is the same, like I said. There's definitely room in there for the superintendent to take care of any issues that might come up. The last time we talked about it as a full board and just general discussion, there were thoughts that this is a slippery slope where I can understand the term slippery slope. I think we have enough checks and balances as a board here. Nothing can be decided by one board member. It always has to go to vote. So I think that slippery slope would be stopped immediately if there's any sort of crossing over of ideas or conflicts of interest, and I think our superintendent that we currently have will do a good job handling any possible issues that might come up. We do currently have staff members who are in the same family, whether they're married or father-daughter, and our superintendent's been handling those well, and there are no issues that I know of. Of course, it doesn't mean issues might not come up, but again, there's a checks and balances with the 9 of us that have to vote on things, and none of us are involved in the hiring process, so it would not be like we are in an interview with a family member. There's also language in here that says that we would abstain from any contract negotiations. So, to me, things are covered, and I don't see it as a problem. I guess I would also add that other districts allow family members to be, and board members to be on staff. Doesn't mean we have to do the same thing, just that it is out there.
Nicole? So Danelle, just to clarify, you're voting to allow nepotism, correct?
I'm allowing to pass the policy as written, because nepotism is to protect against people hiring and giving
Family
favors
Right.
of your own family. And so
Right.
I'm voting to pass it as written, which took out any of us from being prohibited from having family members as employees in our district.
Okay, because the way this is written, the purpose of it, it's very confusing. It means hiring while avoiding nepotism. So are we allowing family members or not? Because I'm in favor of hiring family members, just because of the shortage. So is that what I'm voting for? I'm voting for
Yes.
this thing?
Yes, you're voting to allow any of our family members to be employees of the district.
Got it, okay.
Alexis?
So I'm still I'm still struggling with this, and the reason I'm struggling is if we pass this, we're setting precedents for a board and a superintendent and a district 5, 10, whatever years down the road from now. If we look at a lot of our policies go back to 2002. Some of these policies haven't been looked at in a really long time. So that's my struggle is, while we're currently all good right now, and I don't hope that the shortage doesn't last forever either. So I think that's maybe where the slippery slope, maybe, I wasn't in that meeting, so I'm not sure of where it came from, but I'm really struggling with approving this.
Brian?
So I'm the one that opened this Pandora's box, I think, initially, as a discussion point, only about should we, as a broader perspective, because there is a shortage, should we look at things like that? Not necessarily saying that I was for or against, such a policy initially. Like Alexis, I struggle with there are checks and balances for the Board of Ed folks, so I absolutely can, I can see that. But what I worry about, or what I'm concerned with later on, and we currently have a superintendent that is able to manage it, but I worry about undue influence on a superintendent that may not be as sure of himself or more easily swayed, so to speak, by that pressure from board members. If there was an issue with a family member or somebody else that was related to them, and that puts them in a poor spot, and it falls under that law of unintended consequences thing that happens from time to time. So anyway, like I said, I'm the one that opened this up mainly because just as a broader purpose of just talking about ideas. And but I definitely I feel like I'm standing on sand a little bit with this. I don't have sure foot one way or the other. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Board of Ed members, they come and go based on the years that they're serving. What if a family member was hired before the Board of Ed member served? What happens to the family member? Do they stay or do they have to leave?
I mean, I think that's a great question.
But I think this policy removes Board of Ed members from all of that, correct?
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't matter.
Well, there's disclosures in here, if I may, at the bottom. It says that, you know, if you become related, some people get married, they start dating or whatever, or I believe, I might be speaking out of turn, we have a father whose daughter was hired in the district who could be the supervisor of the daughter, but in the policy, it says the superintendent has the power to change the supervisor knowing that it's there. It also says if a board member's family member or administrator's family member is going to apply for a job, you're supposed to tell or inform the superintendent, by the way, I'm related to them.
Okay, so that's after the fact.
Right.
So if these people are already in place and then a Board of Ed member comes on a
You're just
term-
supposed to let them know. It says in here, I'm trying to find where it is.
But it doesn't affect them at all?
No, it doesn't say that they should be terminated.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dawn.
So there are two different things that we're talking about now, because I don't know that a board member would be qualified to sit on the board if they already had a member of the family, or as this
wondering
policy
that
is
too.
right now, if Kevin was an employee of the district and I got voted onto the board, he could no longer be an employee of the district. That's how it's stated right now.
Or you would not be eligible
Or I would not be
run.
eligible. So, of course, we have to support my family over volunteer work, so I would not sit on the board. I'm wondering, because we're making this very personal, and it's not about us. Like, it's about everything that we're talking about is beyond just me and my time on the board. So while I'm also very on the line, I have very strong convictions in myself and what I would do if a family member was going to apply and get a job here. But I'm wondering if this invites...
The board is not involved in hiring, the superintendent is.
I
That's the
understand that.
difference.
However, one could argue that the superintendent or the principal or whoever is doing the hiring feels influenced in order to make that hire.
Because we do hire the superintendent.
So the last meeting, I made the case that you could be closer to a person who's not related to you than your family member. My best friend got a job here, and I influenced you to hire them because they're my best friend.
That is true.
That is true. And we would still want you to recuse yourself of negotiations with that employee. And I would question my position on the board as well if my best friend was being evaluated by the person I evaluate, I guess. That's right. That's kind of the way that it goes. But just to add my 2 cents, I just feel like adopting this policy would not put the 9, 10 of us that are sitting around this table into trouble, but I do think that in a year, 2 years, 5 years, when there are other members of the board that have been elected or other people sitting in this chair, I think that we have to think about more than just the 10 of us and our discretion as opposed to what's in the best interest of the district and legally and ethically. I'm just trying to imagine if I put myself in that position and Mr. Gonzalez was the direct supervisor of my own son. I feel like it could potentially cause, even if it didn't cause anything, how would it be perceived by others? I think that's a tricky situation that I don't want to put myself in.
I think, well, I'm going to keep interrupting here.
Go ahead.
I think perception is a lot different than what's actually happening. And just because you're related does not mean someone was hired because they're related to someone. No favor necessarily was shown just because someone's related. But I think prohibiting someone from working here simply because they're related isn't isn't right either. I don't want to use the word fair either. Because again, I could say my best friend could work here and I had an influence in them, but we're not related, so that's fine. And again, I'll emphasize, we don't act as one person. We're 9 of us. So whether that's these 9 faces or 9 different faces, it's still a board that has to act together. And the superintendent is ultimately the one in charge of carrying out these policies. But if we know of something that's going on that's awry, we need to speak up as a board.
Can I just counter just for a second, and I'm sorry, but if we are 9, but we don't hire anybody except for the superintendent, and the superintendent, say, hired a board member's child or spouse that was not performing well, there's not much the 9 of us would do.
We shouldn't be involved in that. That's the superintendent's job.
Right.
Whether they're our child, our brother, or a friend.
Right.
Because we have poor performing people right now, and we're not doing anything about it. We don't have the power to do that.
That is true.
That's his job.
Yeah, but it's not like you don't talk about it. We have conversations about people that we do not directly.
But about teachers, I mean, ultimately, you said, who is this really affecting? It comes down to the students. So if you're going to have a poor performing family member as a teacher, that's going to affect these students, and somebody better say something about it. That's what it comes down to.
All right, does anybody else have any input?
Well,
Go ahead.
I suppose I ought to have some input. Danelle said it so well that it's hard to come up with any other, I agree with her argument. And we're sitting here worrying about classes where we don't necessarily have a substitute, and the principals are all juggling their schedules and stuff, trying to make sure we have coverage at all times. And we know we have COVID forever, and we have the flu, and I would support the policy.
Anyone else? Okay.
Do you want to vote on it, just to see what the feel of the...
I have one more thought. So our governor has extended COVID emergency situations temporarily, I think, like coaching certificates issued as emergency. You're allowing college students to sub right now. I don't think that will go on forever. And there is a potential we could make this policy a temporary
COVID policy.
I mean, I still think it shouldn't. I think it should be extended longer than that, but because I think we're responsible citizens here, but I would rather have it be a temporary policy and allow people to work here that want to work here, if they would want to work here, than prohibit them still. So it's just a possible idea.
Are we allowed to do that?
The motions for the what was written.
Yeah.
So I have to do a different motion.
Go ahead, Dawn.
So if this is meant to address the sub shortage alone, don't we have a sub policy? So wouldn't we be talking about the substitute policy versus general hiring?
I don't think it's just for subs, but that's one.
Well, we keep talking about it in terms of subs. You keep bringing up
Kind of
subs.
like a temporary.
Do we get Andy to have any comments or not?
If Andy has comments to make, he's welcome to. Otherwise, we can take a vote.
Are we fully staffed, Andy? Or are there still hires?
We're fully staffed in terms of the vacancies that we had for certified positions, etc. But if you're talking on a daily basis,
No.
there's
No,
always
just positions.
positions.
Fully staffed.
We're fully staffed. I guess my feelings are, I appreciate the confidence in how I might be able to handle this. I don't necessarily know that this would change what we have in terms of supporting our classrooms. So if the board has their concerns around this, I don't know that this necessarily is going to be a game changer either way. If you don't accept this policy, we're still going to have shortage. I think if you accept this policy, we're still going to have a shortage. So if you feel that the challenges that might come along with it are not worth changing this policy, then maybe we don't.
All right. All those in favor of the approval of the nepotism policy, because it was motioned by Maureen, seconded by Danelle. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is Maureen, Nicole, Danelle, and John. All those opposed? Bruce, Brian, Sarah, Alexis, and Dawn. That motion fails. Okay, it's good discussion, though. It's good discussion. Okay, the next item on the agenda is anticipated executive session.
Oh, you go ahead.
Motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the unaffiliated salaries
2023.
and inviting the superintendent as well.